Commander Taewon Park stood at the viewport of the diplomatic vessel, Olive Branch, watching the stars. His reflection showed a tired face with dark circles under his eyes. He had not slept well in days. Behind him, the ship's bridge hummed with quiet activity as his crew monitored systems and communications. "Commander, incoming transmission from Outpost Horizon," called out Communications Officer Dae-Yun. Taewon turned. "Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, showing the face of his younger sister Jin. She was the lead researcher at Horizon, a small human science station studying a nearby nebula. Her usual smile was missing today. "Brother, we have a problem," Jin said. "Vexari warships entered our sector an hour ago. They claim to be conducting military exercises." Taewon frowned. "Again? This is the third time this month." "Yes, but they're much closer now. We've sent the standard diplomatic warnings, but they're not responding." "I'll contact their ambassador immediately," Taewon said. "Stay safe." As the call ended, Lieutenant Ji-Woo Kim approached. She had served as his second officer for 5 years and knew his moods well. "Your sister?" she asked. "Yes. The Vexari are pushing boundaries again." He sighed. "Contact Ambassador Zarel, tell him it's urgent." Ji-Woo nodded and returned to her station. Taewon rubbed his temples, feeling a headache building. The Vexari were one of the most powerful species in the Galactic Confederation. Tall reptilian beings with natural armor and a warrior culture. They had never hidden their belief that humans were weak and unworthy of their place in galactic society. 20 minutes later, the Vexari ambassador's scaled face appeared on screen. His yellow eyes showed no concern. "Commander Park, what is so urgent that you interrupt my preparations for the Trade Council?" "Ambassador, your ships are conducting exercises dangerously close to our research outpost. We request they move to a different sector immediately." The ambassador made a dismissive gesture with his clawed hand. "The exercises were planned months ago. Your little outpost is simply in an inconvenient location. That little outpost houses 300 human civilians conducting peaceful research. The nebula studies are important to all Confederation species. Then they should be more careful." The ambassador's tone was cold. "Now I believe you humans are needed to mediate the dispute between the Drell and Coven delegations this afternoon. I suggest you focus on your diplomatic duties and leave military matters to species better suited for them." The screen went dark before Taewon could respond. He stood in silence, hands clenched at his sides. "He cut the transmission," Ji-Woo said, her voice tight with anger. "Just like that. Standard Vexari courtesy," Taewon replied bitterly. "Inform the Confederation Council about the situation. Perhaps they'll actually do something this time." But he knew they wouldn't. Humans had become the diplomats of the galaxy, valued for their ability to mediate conflicts between other species. But that same skill had become a trap. Humans were expected to solve everyone else's problems while their own concerns were ignored. 3 hours later, Taewon sat in the main conference room of Confederation Station Alpha, watching representatives of the Drell and Coven species argue over mining rights to an asteroid belt. The Drell were insectoid beings with multiple limbs that clicked and waved as they spoke. The Covans were gelatinous creatures that changed colors with their emotions, currently flashing angry reds and oranges. "The belt was discovered by our explorers," the Drell representative chittered. "By law, first discovery grants primary rights." "Your ships merely passed through," the Coven countered, its body rippling. "Our mining operation was first to extract resources. That establishes claim under Section 47. Taewon had mediated this exact dispute between different species at least 20 times in his career. The arguments never changed, only the participants. He opened his mouth to suggest a compromise when his personal communicator vibrated against his wrist. The message was from Ji-Woo. "Emergency. Return to ship immediately." He stood abruptly. "Excuse me, representatives. We will need to continue this discussion later." The Drell's antennae twitched in annoyance. "This is most irregular, Commander. The Confederation Council expects a resolution today. I apologize, but I have an emergency." Taewon was already moving toward the door. "Typical human unreliability," he heard the Coven mutter as he left. When Taewon reached the Olive Branch, he found the bridge in chaos. Officers moved quickly between stations, their faces pale and shocked. Ji-Woo rushed to meet him. "What's happened?" he asked. Her eyes were red. Outpost Horizon. It's gone. What do you mean gone? The Vexari military exercise. They fired on the station. They're claiming it was an accident, a targeting malfunction during weapons testing. The room seemed to tilt around him. Jin, the staff. Jiwoo shook her head. No survivors reported. The station was completely destroyed. Taewon gripped the nearest console to steady himself. 300 people. His sister. Her husband. Their young daughter. All gone. The Vexari ambassador, he asked, his voice hollow, has expressed regret for the unfortunate incident and offered compensation for the property loss. Jiwoo's voice shook with rage. They're calling it an accident, but this is the fourth human facility accidentally damaged or destroyed this year. Taewon looked around the bridge. Every human face showed the same mix of grief and fury. For years they had endured. They had been patient. They had followed the rules of a system that increasingly treated them as tools rather than equals. What does the council say? He asked. They've issued a formal statement of concern and will investigate the incident. Jiwoo's laugh was bitter. The same response as the last 3 times. Taewon walked slowly to the command chair and sat down. His mind was surprisingly clear now, the shock giving way to cold certainty. Send a message to Earth Command, he said quietly. Authorization code Park 7 Delta 9. Jiwoo's eyes widened. Sir, that's the silent protocol authorization. Yes, it's time. The communications officer looked up in surprise. Commander, are you certain? Once initiated, I'm certain, Taewon cut him off. The Confederation has made it clear where humans stand. We've tried diplomacy. We've tried patience. We've tried playing by their rules. He looked at the empty space on the view screen where Outpost Horizon had once been, and this is what it got us. Jiwoo stepped closer. The protocol has been theoretical for years. No one ever thought we'd actually use it. That's why it will work, Taewon replied. No one believes humans capable of unified action like this. They see us as useful servants, not equals. Not threats. He stood up. That perception ends today. He looked around at his crew, meeting each person's eyes. Send the signal, and prepare for Phase 1. As the encrypted message was transmitted to every human ship, station and colony throughout Confederation space, Taewon thought of his sister's last words to him. Stay safe. I'm sorry I couldn't keep you safe, he whispered. But I promise you this. No species will ever forget what happens when humans finally decide they've had enough. The silent protocol had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. Captain Minji Kang was eating dinner in her quarters when the alert came through. The small device on her wrist flashed with a pattern she had been trained to recognize but never expected to see. 3 red pulses, followed by a steady blue light. Silent protocol activated. She set down her fork and took a deep breath. After 5 years as captain of the Earth Defense Force vessel, Steadfast, she had participated in dozens of drills for this scenario. But this was real. Minji pressed the ship-wide communication button. All personnel report to stations immediately. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. Within minutes, she stood on the bridge as her crew settled into their positions. Their faces showed a mix of nervousness and determination. Silent protocol has been activated, she announced. You all know what this means. For too long, humans have been treated as second-class citizens in the Confederation, while being expected to solve everyone's problems. Today, that changes. Her first officer, Lieutenant Junho Lee, approached with a data tablet. All systems ready, Captain. Phase 1 can begin on your command. Minji nodded and pressed her palm to the authentication scanner. Begin Phase 1. Throughout human space, the same scene played out on thousands of vessels. Civilian transports changed course. Military ships powered up systems that had been hidden from Confederation inspectors. Research stations began downloading and then deleting their data. Human diplomats made excuses to leave meetings. Traders canceled deals. Medical staff requested emergency leave. The withdrawal had begun. On Confederation Central Station, Senior diplomat Hoon Yu sat quietly as the Arcturian and Malosian representatives shouted at each other across the conference table. Neither species noticed when he slipped his personal items into his bag. They were too busy arguing over water rights on a shared border planet. Hoon had spent 15 years as a Confederation diplomat. He had resolved conflicts between 37 different species. He had worked 18-hour days, missed his children's birthdays, and sacrificed his health for the greater good of galactic peace. And when his own cousin had died in a mining accident caused by illegal Malosian operations in human territory, the Confederation Council had expressed regret and moved on. His communicator showed the silent protocol signal. It was time. Hoon stood up. "Excuse me, representatives. I must step out." The Arcturian turned all four of its eyes toward him. "When will you return?" "This dispute must be resolved today." "I will not be returning," Hoon said simply. The Malosian's tentacles curled in confusion. "What do you mean? You are assigned to this mediation." "Not anymore." Hoon picked up his bag and walked to the door. He paused and looked back at the bewildered aliens. "You'll have to solve your own problems now." As he walked through the station's main concourse, he noticed other humans doing the same thing, quietly packing up, ending conversations and moving toward the docking bays. None of them spoke to each other. They didn't need to. The plan had been in place for years, waiting for the signal. At the diplomatic docking bay, a small transport was waiting. 23 human representatives boarded in silence. As the ship pulled away from the station, Hoon looked out the viewport at the gleaming structure that had been his home for over a decade. "Do you think they'll understand the message?" asked a young woman beside him. Hoon shook his head. "Not at first, but they will." 2 days later, Councillor Dak of the Vexari pounded his fist on the table in the Confederation Council chamber. His scales had darkened to a deep orange, a sign of extreme agitation in his species. "This is outrageous," he roared. 7 critical negotiations have stalled because the human mediator simply disappeared. Trade routes are disrupted. The medical station in Sector 12 is operating at half capacity because human doctors left without notice. Around the circular table, representatives of 22 species murmured in agreement. The council chamber, normally a model of order and procedure, had descended into chaos. High Elder Ziv of the Malosian Collective raised her tentacles for silence. "We have attempted to contact Earth Central Government, but they are not responding to official channels. All human ships have withdrawn from Confederation space. Their colonies have activated defensive systems and are denying entry to non-human vessels. They cannot do this," Dak hissed. "Humans are bound by Confederation treaties to provide diplomatic and medical services." "Actually," came a quiet voice from the entrance, "if you read those treaties carefully, you'll find we are not." All heads turned to see Hun Yu standing in the doorway. As the last human representative still present in Confederation space, his appearance caused immediate silence. Hun walked calmly to the center of the chamber. He carried no weapons, wore no official uniform, just simple civilian clothes. Yet every council member watched him with wary attention. "Senior Diplomat Yu," Elder Ziv said, "we demand an explanation for this human behavior." "I am no longer a diplomat," Hun replied. "I am here simply as a messenger." He activated a small device that projected a holographic image in the center of the room, a formal document with the seal of the Earth Central Government. "This is a notice of temporary withdrawal from all non-essential Confederation activities," Hun explained. "Humans are exercising our right under Article 27 of the Founding Charter to suspend services that are not explicitly required for basic membership." "This is absurd," Councillor Dak snarled. "The Confederation cannot function without human mediators and support staff." Hun looked directly at the Vexari. "That is precisely the point, Councillor. For decades, humans have served as the backbone of this Confederation. We have mediated your conflicts, staffed your medical facilities, maintained your communication networks, and transported your goods, all while being treated as inferiors." He gestured to the empty human seat at the council table. "We have 1 representative here, while species with half our population have 2 or 3. Our colonies face resource restrictions that are not applied to others. Our outposts are destroyed in accidents with minimal consequences." The chamber was silent now. Some council members looked uncomfortable. "The destruction of Outpost Horizon was the final straw," Hun continued. 300 human lives lost, dismissed as an unfortunate incident. "So we have decided to step aside and let you manage without us for a while." "This is blackmail," Dak hissed. "This is a lesson," Hun corrected. "Humans have been patient. We have been cooperative. We have followed your rules and protocols. And in return, we have been exploited and disrespected. He deactivated the hologram and placed the device on the floor. How long will this withdrawal last? Elder Ziv asked. Until the Confederation demonstrates that it values human contribution and human lives, Hoon replied. Until we are treated as equals, not servants. He turned and walked toward the exit. Before leaving, he looked back at the stunned council. For too long you have mistaken human diplomacy for weakness. You believed we mediated your conflicts because we feared your strength. The truth is much simpler. We chose peace because we value it, not because we fear war. His voice grew quieter. That was your mistake. As the door closed behind him, the council chamber erupted into shouting. But Hoon didn't hear it. He was already walking toward the docking bay where a small ship waited to take him to the edge of human space. Phase 1 of the silent protocol was complete. Now came the hard part, waiting for the Confederation to realize just how much they had depended on the humans they had taken for granted. Admiral Jun Choi stood on the observation deck of the Determination, watching as his fleet took formation at the edge of human space. 25 warships arranged in a defensive pattern, their hulls gleaming in the light of a distant sun. Most of these ships had never been seen by the Confederation. They had been built in secret, hidden in asteroid bases and remote shipyards. Status report, he said to his tactical officer, Sun Woo Lee. Sun Woo checked her display. All ships in position, Admiral. Defense grid is active. Our observers report increasing distress throughout Confederation space. Show me. The large screen on the wall activated, displaying a series of reports from human intelligence agents still monitoring Confederation communications. June read them with grim satisfaction. 3 weeks had passed since the silent protocol began. The effects were spreading faster than even the most optimistic planners had predicted. The Drell and Vixari have opened fire on each other at Proxima Station, Sunwoo reported. 3 other species have been drawn into the conflict. Without human mediators, the situation escalated from a trade dispute to armed conflict in less than 2 days. June nodded. And the medical crisis? Critical. The main hospital station in Sector 7 is operating at 30% capacity, without human doctors and nurses. The Arcturians are particularly affected. Their biology is most compatible with human medical techniques. What about the communication networks? Sunwoo smiled slightly. Failing. Turns out 90% of network maintenance was performed by human technicians. The Confederation never bothered to train their own species for those roles. They always relied on us. June walked to the window, clasping his hands behind his back. For decades, humans had been building their strength while appearing weak. They had created backup systems, hidden resources, and developed technologies they never shared with the Confederation. All while smiling and nodding and solving everyone else's problems. His communication officer called from across the bridge. Admiral, we've received the 7th request this week for emergency human intervention. The Confederation Council is offering increased representation and resource allocations in exchange for an immediate return of human mediators. No response, June said. Not yet. They need to understand that this isn't a negotiating tactic. This is a fundamental change. The door to the bridge slid open and Commander Taewon Park entered. He looked better than when June had last seen him, though the loss of his sister still showed in his eyes. Admiral, Taewon said with a salute. The Olive Branch has completed its patrol of the border. No Confederation ships have attempted to cross into human space. They're too busy fighting each other, June replied. How are your crew holding up? They're ready. We all are. Taewon moved to stand beside him at the window. I never thought we'd actually activate the protocol. It always seemed like a last resort that would never be needed. I've been expecting this day for 15 years, June said quietly. Ever since the Ganymede incident, when the Confederation refused to help human colonists during the plague. 2,000 dead because alien medical ships wouldn't risk contamination by landing on a human world. Taewon nodded. And yet we continued to send our doctors to help them whenever they asked. Because that's what humans do. We help, we solve problems. We make peace, June's voice hardened. But we've been doing it for so long that the Confederation forgot something important. Those who are good at making peace understand war better than anyone. On Confederation Central Station, the emergency council meeting had been going for 6 hours with no progress. Representatives from 22 species argued while reports of new crises arrived every few minutes. The trade routes through Sector 9 are completely shut down, reported the Coven delegate. its body flashing anxious yellow patterns. Without human transport ships, we cannot move essential supplies. The medical situation is worse, added the Arcturian representative. 3 of our colony worlds are reporting outbreaks of Thalaxian fever. Without human doctors who can safely handle both our biology and the virus, death rates are rising. Counselor Dak of the Vexari slammed his clawed hand on the table. This is exactly what the humans wanted. They planned this to show us how dependent we've become on them. Perhaps, said Elder Ziv of the Melosians, her voice calm, that is precisely the point we should be considering. We have become dependent on a species we refuse to treat as equals. The chamber fell silent as a new alert appeared on all their screens. The Drell representative read it aloud, his mandibles clicking in distress. A Vexari battle group has entered the Tau Ceti system and is approaching the human colony there. They are claiming the right to secure strategic resources during this crisis. All eyes turned to Counselor Dak, who straightened his scaled shoulders. The colony sits on critical mineral deposits needed for our defense systems. If humans will not fulfill their Confederation duties, we must ensure our own security. Elder Ziv's tentacles curled in alarm. You are invading a human world? After they have merely withdrawn their voluntary services? This is madness. It is necessity, Dak replied coldly. Humans must learn they cannot blackmail the Confederation. They are a weak species who have forgotten their place. Once they see our strength, they will return to their duties. The Arcturian representative's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. I fear you do not understand what you have done. On the bridge of the determination, the alert came through immediately. Admiral, Sunwoo called out. Vexari warships have entered the Tau Ceti system. They're approaching New Hope Colony with weapons charged. June's expression didn't change. How many ships? 8 warships, including 1 dreadnought. They think it's a show of force, Taewon said quietly. They expect the colony to surrender. June nodded. They still don't understand. He turned to his communications officer. Signal the defense fleet. Activate Phase 3. Throughout human space, hidden military bases suddenly came to life. Ships that had been disguised as mining vessels or transport craft revealed their true nature, shedding false hull plates to expose weapon systems. Orbital platforms that appeared to be research stations activated shield generators and defense arrays. And from a hidden base in the asteroid belt of Tau Ceti, a fleet of 30 human warships emerged. Vessels whose existence had never been recorded in any Confederation database. Commander Doyun Ryu sat in the captain's chair of the lead ship. The consequence. His executive officer, Hieri Bei, looked up from her console. The Vexari fleet has detected us, she reported. They're adjusting course to intercept. Open a channel, Doyun ordered. The face of the Vexari fleet commander appeared on screen, his scales darkening in surprise at seeing a human. This is Commander Doyun Ryu of the Earth Defense Force. You have entered human territory without permission and approached our colony with hostile intent. Withdraw immediately. The Vexari commander's mouth opened in what passed for a smile in his species. We are here on Confederation security business, human. Your colony sits on strategic resources needed during this crisis that your people created. Stand down your vessels and prepare for inspection. Doyun's face remained calm. You have 30 seconds to reverse course. The Vexari laughed. Or what? Everyone knows humans have no significant military capability. It's why you hide behind diplomacy. 20 seconds, Doyun replied. The Vexari cut the transmission. On the tactical display, Hieri watched as the enemy ships continued their approach, spreading out into attack formation. They're targeting the colony's main settlement, she reported. Doyun nodded. Deploy countermeasures. Non-lethal response only. As the Vexari ships came within firing range of the colony, they suddenly found themselves surrounded by the human fleet. Before they could react, the consequence fired a series of precisely targeted energy pulses. The Vexari ships didn't explode. They simply stopped. Their engines died. Their weapons powered down. Their communication systems went silent. In the span of 45 seconds, the entire Vexari battle group had been neutralized without a single life lost. Doyun turned to Hieri. Prepare boarding teams. It's time to show the Confederation exactly what they never bothered to learn about humanity. The revelation had begun. And across the galaxy, the message was clear. Humans had never been weak. They had been patient. And that patience had finally run out. Commander Doyen Ryu walked slowly down the line of captured Vexari officers. They stood stiffly in the large briefing room of the Consequence, their scaled bodies rigid with a mixture of anger and fear. Vexari were not used to being defeated, especially not by humans. "Welcome aboard," Doyen said calmly. "I apologize for the discomfort, but your ships needed to be disabled." The Vexari fleet commander, a large male named Krex, hissed through sharp teeth. "This is an act of war against the Confederation. You will release us immediately." "Interesting perspective," Doyen replied. "From where I stand, 8 warships entering human territory and targeting a civilian colony looks very much like an act of war against us." He gestured to his executive officer, Hieri Bey, who activated the room's display screen. It showed all 8 Vexari ships floating powerless in space, surrounded by the human fleet. "Your vessels have not been damaged," Doyen explained. "They've been temporarily disabled by a targeted electromagnetic pulse. No one has been harmed." "Impossible," one of the other Vexari officers said. "Our ships have shielding against such attacks." "They had shielding against known Confederation weapons," Hieri corrected. "Not against human technology that we chose not to share." Doyen nodded to a technician, who activated another display. This one showed images of human military capabilities that had been hidden for decades. Advanced shield systems that could protect an entire planet, energy weapons that could disable rather than destroy, and manufacturing facilities built inside asteroids and moons. "For 50 years, Doyen said, humans have been developing defensive technology, while presenting ourselves as primarily diplomatic. We shared some advances with the Confederation, but kept many others private." "Why?" asked a younger Vexari officer, his scales lighter than the others. "Because the Confederation made it clear that humans were valued only for certain skills," Doyen answered. "We were expected to be mediators, doctors, technicians, but never equals. When we tried to take a larger role in defense or leadership, we were pushed aside." He walked to the window where the disabled Vexari dreadnought was visible. "So we adapted. We built our strength quietly while serving the role you expected of us." Krex's tail lashed angrily. "You deceived the Confederation." "We protected ourselves," Doyen corrected. "And it's fortunate that we did. How many accidents have destroyed human outposts in the past year? How many of our colonies have had their resource requests denied, while others received more than they needed?" The younger Vexari officer looked uncomfortable. Doyen noticed. "You disagree, officer?" "Mex," the young Vexari said. "I served at Outpost Horizon before the incident." "I never believed it was an accident." Krex hissed at him to be silent. But Doyen raised his hand. "Please continue." "Officer Mex, the targeting systems on our ships don't malfunction in that way," Mex said quietly. "The attack on Horizon was deliberate. Many of us knew it, but we were ordered to support the official story." The room fell silent. Doyen looked at Krex, whose scales had darkened to almost black. "You see," Doyen said, "we know. We've always known when you were lying to us. We just chose to accept it because we believed peace was worth the cost." His voice hardened. "We no longer believe that." In the Confederation Council chamber, chaos reigned. The emergency session had been running for 12 hours straight as reports flooded in about the confrontation at Tau Ceti. "The entire Vexari battle group has been neutralized," reported the Coven representative, its body pulsing with shocked blue patterns, without firing a single destructive shot. "The human fleet simply turned them off." "Impossible," Councillor Dak insisted, though his scales had paled to a sickly yellow. "Vexari warships cannot be disabled so easily." "And yet they were," Elder Ziv said. "It appears our understanding of human capabilities has been severely limited." A new alert flashed on all their screens. The Arcturian representative read it with all 4 eyes widened in surprise. "The humans are broadcasting a system-wide message from Tau Ceti. They're showing the Vexari officers being given a tour of their technology." The main screen in the chamber activated, showing Commander Doyen leading the captured Vexari through what appeared to be an advanced weapons development facility, hidden inside one of Tau Ceti's moons. "This is a Class 7 shield generator," Doyen was explaining. "One unit can protect an area of 500 square kilometers. We have 23 of them positioned around New Hope Colony." The camera panned to show rows of sleek silver devices. "And these," Doyen continued, "are non-lethal ship disablers. They target control systems rather than life support. We developed them because humans prefer not to kill when there are alternatives. The council watched in stunned silence as the tour continued, revealing technology far beyond what humans had ever shared with the Confederation. "They've been hiding this all along," whispered the Drell representative, his mandibles clicking nervously. While smiling and mediating our disputes, Elder Ziv's tentacles curled thoughtfully. "Not hiding, simply not volunteering. How often did any of us ask what humans were developing? We were too busy telling them what we needed from them." The broadcast shifted to show the Vexari officers being returned to their ships, which were now functional again. "You are free to leave human space," Doyen told them. "Return to the Confederation and report what you've seen. Tell them that humans are done being exploited. We want peace, but we will no longer accept disrespect." As the Vexari ships departed, escorted by human vessels to the edge of the system, the council chamber fell silent. Finally, the Coven representative spoke, its body now a thoughtful purple. "I believe we have severely misunderstood our human colleagues." Admiral Jun Choi watched the recording of the Tau Ceti incident from the bridge of the Determination. Beside him, Commander Taewon Park and Lieutenant Jiwoo Kim observed with satisfaction. "Commander Doyen handled it perfectly," Jiwoo said. "No casualties, clear demonstration of strength, and a diplomatic path forward." "Very human," Taewon agreed with a small smile. June nodded. "Phase 3 is complete. The Confederation now understands that we have teeth." He turned to his communications officer. "Any response from the Council?" "Yes, Admiral. They've sent an official request for a meeting with human representatives. They're suggesting neutral territory for discussions about a new understanding between species." "They're scared," Taewon observed. "Good," said Jiwoo. "After what happened to Horizon, they should be." June studied the message carefully. "They're offering significant concessions. Equal representation on the Council, autonomy for human colonies, reparations for Horizon and the other incidents. Do we accept?" asked the communications officer. June looked at Taewon, whose sister had died at Horizon. The commander's face was thoughtful. "What do you think?" June asked him. "I think," Taewon said slowly, "that we've made our point. We didn't start the silent protocol to destroy the Confederation. We did it to change it." June nodded. "Send a response. We will meet with them in 1 week. The location will be the memorial site at Outpost Horizon." He paused. "And inform Ambassador Jia Yun that she will lead the delegation." "Ambassador Yun?" Jiwoo asked. "She's one of our most forgiving diplomats." "Exactly," June said. "We've shown them our strength. Now we need to show them our wisdom. That's always been the true power of humanity. Not our weapons or our technology, but our ability to find a better path forward." As the message was sent, June looked out at the stars. The Confederation had finally seen what humans were capable of when pushed too far. They had witnessed the technology, the coordination, the resolve that had been building quietly for decades. But the most important revelation was yet to come. Soon they would learn that even at their strongest, humans still preferred peace to war. That was not weakness, it was humanity's greatest strength. And it was time for the galaxy to understand the difference. The memorial site at Outpost Horizon was a simple, elegant structure. A large circular platform floated in space exactly where the research station had once been. In the center stood a monument, a tall spire of earth marble with the names of all 300 victims carved into its surface. Around it, small lights glowed like stars, one for each lost life. Ambassador Jia Yun stood alone on the platform, waiting. She was a small woman with calm eyes and gray streaks in her dark hair. After 30 years as a diplomat, she had seen the best and worst of interspecies relations. Today might be her most important work yet. Her communication device chimed softly. "They're approaching, Ambassador," said the voice of her assistant from the human ship stationed nearby. "Thank you," Jia replied. "No guards, just as we agreed." She watched as the Confederation shuttle docked at the platform's edge. The door opened and representatives from 7 species emerged. The newly formed Confederation Special Council. They walked slowly toward her, their movements cautious in the artificial gravity. Elder Ziv of the Melosians led the group, her tentacles moving gently. Behind her came representatives of the Arcturians, Drell, Covens, and 3 other major species. Notably absent was any Vexari delegate. "Ambassador Yun," Elder Ziv said, extending a tentacle in greeting. We appreciate your willingness to meet. Gia bowed slightly. This location was chosen deliberately. It seems appropriate that we discuss our future in a place that represents our past failures. The delegates looked uncomfortable as they gazed at the memorial. The names carved in the marble seemed to watch them. 3 months have passed since the silent protocol began. Gia continued. How is the Confederation managing without human assistance? The Arcturian representative blinked all 4 eyes. Poorly. Trade has decreased by 67%. Medical emergencies have increased. 3 minor wars have broken out in disputed territories. And the communication networks are failing, added the Drell, his mandibles clicking softly. Without human technicians, many systems are operating at minimal capacity. Gia nodded. We've been monitoring the situation. It is unfortunate. It is exactly what you planned, said the Kovan representative, its body flashing orange patterns. You knew how dependent we had become on human services. Yes, Gia admitted. We knew. The question is, did you? The delegates exchanged glances. Elder Ziv moved forward. We did not, she said simply. Or perhaps we did, but chose not to acknowledge it. It was easier to accept human help while treating you as junior partners than to recognize you as equals. Gia walked to the memorial and touched one of the names. Jin Park, Commander Taewan's sister. For decades, humans have served the Confederation faithfully, she said. We mediated your conflicts. We healed your sick. We maintained your networks. We transported your goods, and in return we were denied equal representation, equal resources, and equal respect. She turned to face them. The destruction of Outpost Horizon was not an isolated incident. It was the culmination of a pattern we could no longer accept. The Vexari responsible have been removed from power, the Arcturian said quickly. Councillor Dak and his military commanders have been charged with crimes against the Confederation. A good first step, Gia acknowledged. But not enough. She activated a small device she carried, projecting a holographic display between them. It showed a document titled, Terms for Human Reintegration. We've watched your societies begin to collapse without human assistance, she said. That was never our goal. We simply needed you to understand our true value. The delegates studied the document as it rotated, slowly in the space between them. Equal representation. On the Council, read the Drell. Autonomy for human colonies. Reparations for past exploitation. Formal recognition of human space as a sovereign territory within the Confederation. These terms are significant, Elder Ziv said carefully. They are fair, Gia replied. We don't seek dominance, but we will no longer accept subservience. The Kovan's body shifted to a thoughtful blue. And if we agree to these terms, humans will return to their previous roles? Mediation, medicine, maintenance. Gia shook her head. Not exactly. We will share our skills and knowledge, yes, but as partners, not servants, and we will expect other species to learn these skills as well. The Confederation cannot function if it depends entirely on one species. That seems reasonable, the Arcturian admitted. There is one more condition, Gia said, her voice growing softer. The Confederation must acknowledge the truth about Outpost Horizon and the other accidents involving human facilities. The families of the victims deserve to know what really happened. The delegates were silent for a long moment. Finally, Elder Ziv spoke. We agree to all terms, she said. The Confederation Council has already voted. We are authorized to sign immediately. Gia looked surprised. Without debate? Without negotiation? We have been debating for 3 months, the Drell said, mandibles clicking with what might have been amusement. While you were gone, we had nothing to do but think about how we had treated humans, and watch our carefully built society begin to crumble without you. Elder Ziv extended a data tablet. The Council's authorization. We are prepared to sign the new accords now if you are willing. Gia took the tablet and studied it carefully. Everything was as they had demanded, perhaps more. The Confederation had not only accepted human terms but added additional concessions. Technology sharing, joint defense initiatives, and a complete restructuring of the Council to ensure equal representation for all species. You seem surprised. Ambassador, Elder Ziv observed. I expected more resistance, Gia admitted. The demonstration at Tau Ceti was persuasive, the Arcturian said. But more than that, these 3 months have shown us a simple truth. The Confederation is stronger with humans as equal partners. Gia nodded slowly and pressed her thumb to the tablet. officially accepting the terms. One by one, the Confederation representatives did the same. As the last signature was recorded, a soft chime sounded. The new accords were official. "What happens now?" asked the Coven. "Now," Gia said, "we begin the work of building a true partnership." She activated her communication device. "This is Ambassador Yoon. The accords have been signed. Begin Phase 5. Throughout Confederation space, human ships that had withdrawn 3 months earlier began to return. Medical teams arrived at stations where suffering had increased in their absence. Technicians reconnected to failing networks. Diplomats reached out to species locked in conflicts, but this time they came as equals. And this time they brought others with them to learn their skills. 1 week later, Admiral Jun Choi stood on the bridge of the Determination, watching as human and alien crews worked together to repair a damaged Confederation station. Beside him, Commander Taewon Park observed with a mixture of satisfaction and lingering sadness. "Do you think it will last?" Taewon asked quietly. "This new understanding?" Jun considered the question. "I believe it will. Not because the Confederation has suddenly become more fair or just, but because they now understand something fundamental about humans." "What's that?" "That our preference for peace was never weakness. It was a choice." Jun turned to face his friend. "And they now understand what happens when humans choose differently." Taewon nodded slowly. "My sister would have approved, I think. She always believed in the Confederation's potential, even when it failed to live up to its ideals." "The memorial at Horizon will stand forever," Jun said, "not just as a reminder of what we lost, but as a marker for when everything changed." On his data tablet, reports were coming in from across Confederation space. Human diplomats were helping resolve conflicts that had erupted during their absence. Human doctors were treating patients who had suffered without their care. Human technicians were restoring systems that had failed. But now aliens worked alongside them, learning the skills they had once taken for granted. The new accords ensured that no species would ever again become so dependent on another without respect and recognition. As Jun looked out at the stars, he felt a sense of pride. Humans had finally shown the galaxy their true strength, not just their hidden technology or their capacity for unified action, but their ability to forgive without forgetting. To return to the work of building peace but on their own terms. Throughout the galaxy, species would remember this as the moment they realized the quiet, diplomatic humans had been the foundation, holding their civilization together. And what happened when that foundation finally had enough? No species ever forgot the day humans finally snapped, and no species ever took them for granted again.